67% of Gen Z and 62% of millennials in the US rely on AI for personal finance advice. This includes everything from saving to budgeting. But is it time for you to fire your financial advisor? Well, it seems like things might be going that way. I mean, listen to this stat from Forbes. 97% of affluent investors now incorporate AI into their financial strategies. Guys, I know you want to say that AI isn't here, it's not going to replace everyone, but this is a big deal. There's a lot of things that AI can do really well. But don't just take my word for it. Listen to this, 37% of Americans overall use AI to manage finances. 57% are comfortable with it for budgeting. 60% are comfortable with financial education or advice. Guys, this is a huge deal. And in today's video, we're going to examine what this means for personal investors like you and me, but we're also going to examine what does this mean for people that are in the financial services industry. What does this mean for you? Are you still going to be employed? We're going to look at a lot of different interesting data points, like from the U.S. government's Bureau of Labor and Statistics. And I think there's a lot of interesting things to learn here. Now, the other thing I think that's relevant here, guys, is there with predictions and statistics and chances and probabilities, it's not an exact science, guys, and it's hard to predict exactly where things are going. But what we can do is we can look at studies, we can look at surveys, we can look at personal anecdotes, we can look at what's happening within organizations to try to make calls on what is going to happen and prepare accordingly. Because guys, AI is changing the world super rapidly, and if you want to keep up, you got to keep up. You got to be reading, you got to be learning, and certainly by subscribing to this channel, that's a good step forward. You could also subscribe to my newsletter, aiupdate.ai, aiupdate.ai. I'll put a link below. Okay, listen, so let's start by looking at personal financiers and the good. What impact is AI going to have good? So I think the first thing to look here is it's going to dramatically increase financial literacy amongst Americans. Right now, only about half of Americans consider themselves financially literate, which is staggering. Not to mention in poor communities or undereducated communities. I mean, if you're not financially literate, you're not going to be able to get ahead. And for whatever reason, they're not teaching this stuff in school. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but when I was in school, they were not teaching financial literacy. I actually got a chance to speak to a local school. This is about a couple of years ago. I spoke to a local high school seniors about insurance and financial services. And I'll tell you what, not one kid knew what a credit rating was. I asked, please raise your hand if you know what a credit rating is. Not one kid. There are 30 kids in there. Not one of them knew what a credit rating was. Like, that's unacceptable. So with that said, AI has a chance to, if you're using the tools right, to make you financially literate, to help you kind of understand basic concepts like interest and credit rating and so on and so forth. And I think that that's a great thing, because with the rise of like buy now, pay later, not understanding this, the eighth wonder of the world, accumulation of interest, you know, the vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, doesn't even own stocks. What are we doing, guys? So I think that there's a big opportunity for AI to improve this financial literacy across the board. So that's a good. Another good. AI accessible 24/7, 365, fully customizable. There's no more like sending an email to your financial guy and getting a response back 5 days later, if ever. Okay, and obviously if that's the type of service you're getting, you probably want to find a new financial advisor regardless. In any event, AI is accessible all the time, which is pretty good. Pretty good. Efficiency, and I thought this was interesting. This is a Vanguard study from 2022. Guys, 2022, that's 3 years ago. This is a Vanguard study. They showed that AI-powered portfolios reduce costs by 70% and outperform 60% of active managers. That's pretty shocking. That's pretty shocking. So basically, Vanguard is putting their flag in the sand and saying, hey guys, we're doing AI. If you're not using someone that's using AI, you got to fire them ASAP. Now, you might say, well, Mark, Vanguard is, you know, one of the biggest investment firms in the entire world, and they have unlimited resources. And of course, they're going to claim that their AI strategies are the best. And that's a fair point. Regardless, I mean, I think that the fact still remains that AI is going to be better at reviewing all these data, looking at all the all of the context behind a question or behind a query and be able to put the points together better than a human brain will be able to. That's just what AI is good at. I mean, you can feel free to flame me in the comments if you think that that's incorrect. I'm happy to hear your feedback, but you must bring data, right? Trust but verify. So if your comment, by the way, I got a comment the other day that was interesting, something along the lines of like, you're an idiot. And I said, okay, random person on the internet. And he was like, well, if you don't take constructive criticism, then you're never going to get ahead. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? I was talking to James Altshuler. Quick side note before we get back to the episode here, but I was talking to James Altshuler about an article that he wrote where he basically said that New York City is dead, everybody's leaving. And I said, do you regret writing that? And he said, Mark, if I don't care what people think, I don't say it. And so, by coming out here and making some stances and bringing some data and giving some opinions, if I'm not pissing anyone off, if people don't get upset, then I'm probably not saying anything at all. And quite frankly, when you're talking about hundreds of millions of jobs that are on the line and careers and industries that are changing daily, then I can understand why people get upset. So anyway, I get it. Okay, so we talked about the good about using AI for personal finance. What are the bad? Well, A, it's emotionless. It's not going to understand you. It's not going to be able to drink a beer and eat a hot dog at a baseball game with you like your financial advisor would be. Some might say, Mark, I don't really care. I just want to make sure my financial advisor makes me money. That's fair. The bad, it's going to have a hard time completing complex estate planning, trusts, tax law strategy. It's going to have a tough time with like really complex, really high stakes tax type of needs. So that's an issue there. It's going to have a tough time with the really complex stuff, which again, we're going to talk about financial advisors and places for you to stand out and actually become very, very wealthy and productive in this upcoming AI world. Accuracy. This is an interesting stat. According to Kiplinger, AI tools give misleading advice about 35% of the time. Now, again, with this percentage, well, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean by misleading advice? Is it not understand? Did it just miss one piece? Unclear. However, that's a big issue. If you're relying on ChatGPT or an AI model to buy stocks or to predict or to sell stocks at a certain time automatically, if it gets it wrong, that could mean thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I mean, it could have massive implications on your trading portfolio and your investment portfolio. You don't want to retire at age 60 and say, oops, my ChatGPT signed me up for a Roth when it was supposed to be an IRA or 401k, or should have bought bonds, or what was it doing? These are all things to kind of consider. And then also there's privacy concerns. There was this thing that occurred recently where ChatGPT actually released private chat information to Google. So you could Google and find private chat conversations that people were having with ChatGPT on Google, which is shocking. And if you're putting in big, private, very sensitive personal information into an AI model, there's a big question mark there. Is your stuff going to be private or not? That's a big question. So you want to be careful before you input your social security number into ChatGPT. We'll put it that way. In any event, those are some of the pros and cons. Here's the approach. Here's the approach that I'm taking, that I would recommend taking when it comes to personal finance. Again, you should do your own research when it comes to making decisions, but I think that's kind of the big theme here. So I want to combine human with AI. I want to leverage about 80% to AI and 20% to human. I want someone that's using AI that understands the tools, that understands the pros, the cons, the strengths, the weaknesses, and is able to shore that up with their years of experience and wisdom and training in the markets. They understand that type of thing. I also want to use AI to be prepared. Before I meet with my financial advisor, I want to ask AI. I want to bounce some ideas off of it. I think before you ask a question these days to anybody, you should throw it through ChatGPT for 3 minutes to go back and forth to see if it'll answer the idea or give you additional ideas. And I think this is something that we're starting to see in the hiring world is, before you get on an interview with someone, ask ChatGPT, what are some questions that I should ask this person? Again, you should do this across the board. I was recently going through a complicated chart and I didn't really understand it fully, so I threw it in ChatGPT. It gave me a lot of insights and a lot of follow-up questions. So using ChatGPT, using AI to create follow-up questions and be able to go deeper and be more educated about a topic before you meet with your financial advisor, to also find them, catch them with questions or with aha ideas, I think is a really good idea. It's something that everybody should be doing, is kind of leveraging that approach. Be more educated, leverage ChatGPT to be more educated. And before I go into what financial professionals should be thinking about here, I do want to point out that, to me, the way that AI is really fundamentally changing the way that we operate in the world is the difference between the generalist and the specialist. And I'm not saying a specialist is not valuable anymore, but there used to be this belief that if I get really good at one thing for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, that is where I want to be. And I'm not saying that's totally incorrect. However, we're entering an age where AI can make anybody super intelligent at a particular topic almost instantly. So there's almost more value, I think, in being a generalist, being good at many, many different things, and leveraging AI to upgrade your level. So let's say in the past you might be like a level 9 in your specific profession, but you're like, let's say finance in this example. You're level 9 in finance, you really understand it, but you're a 1 in marketing, you're a 1 in sales, you're a 1 in customer service, you're a 1 in HR, you're a 1 in copywriting, you're a 1 in operations, you're a 1 in all this other stuff. Well, you can use AI to bring yourself up from a 1 to a 5 very, very quickly. And maybe if you're a 2 or a 3 and you have some better general knowledge across that, it can act as like a force multiplier of you as a human. So again, kind of understanding the architecture of all these different businesses and models and world works together, and then leveraging AI to put the pieces together, but knowing enough about it so that you can smell when something doesn't seem correct. Does it pass the smell test? Well, if you don't know anything about that topic, it's gonna be hard. But if you're a generalist and you have a good idea, at least a general idea of that, you can find the smell test and see if something passes the smell test when it comes out of a ChatGPT. So anyway, interesting perspective shift that I don't think it's talked about enough, but I think is really important. Okay, let's talk about financial professionals. When you hear stats like 65% or so of Gen Z and millennials are using AI for financial advice, that's got to get you pretty terrified. Where do you stand? There's several hundred, I want to say about 300,000 financial advisors out there in the United States right now. 321,000 I see. If all the up and coming kids are not using financial advisors, if they're using AI, where does that leave you? You could be left in a lurch. So what does that mean for you? Well, we see here that AI adoption in finances has surged in financial professionals specifically. AI adoption with financial professionals has surged from 45% in 2022 to 85% in 2025. And I would assume that's even higher. The reality is that if you're a financial professional and you're not using AI in multiple ways, you're pretty antiquated at this point. You're probably thinking about retirement. But listen, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or even 50s and you're not using AI on a regular basis, you're just not going to be able to keep up. I mean, look at what's happening with millennials and Gen Zers. They're using AI for financial advice. How do you supplement that? That's the question. 85% of financial service firms use it for tasks like fraud detection and personalized recommendations. I think that's interesting. Personalized recommendations. Using AI, assessing all the data in the markets, assessing goals, using AI to give better advice. And then again, running through the lens of the financial professional, AKA you. This is an interesting stat from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They project the net growth for personal financial advisors to add 55,000 jobs by 2033, a 70% increase. Now again, trying to assess, hey, this is political. Whoever's in office is going to say that things are good, things are great, things are going to be amazing. That's just kind of how they do. But I think what it does is it highlights that nobody, and this, you might say, Mark, that's not really a solution. I think the answer is nobody knows what the hell is going to happen here. What we do know for sure is that a lot of people are using AI when it comes to their finances. And so this is really important, not just for you to learn and use, but also to put in the messaging behind what you do. When you're talking to a potential client, say, oh yeah, I offer lower fees because I'm using AI to save a bunch of the administrative work, okay? And this is interesting. So let's talk about some of the bad here. There is a mass erosion of entry-level jobs, aka college graduates. I actually recorded a video about this just the other day. I strongly encourage you to look at this because college grads cannot find jobs. College white-collar jobs are eroding, and this it's increased from 5.8% earlier in 2025 to 6.6% college graduate unemployment right now. Unemployment as a whole is about 4.2%, but college grads are not finding jobs. Why? Because companies have decided that they don't need to hire people fresh out of college. They can use artificial intelligence. They can empower their existing staff to stay lean and mean and efficient. Okay? And again, that's a way that you can kind of talk about the way that your company operates by leveraging these tools to be more efficient. Maybe you don't need to have the receptionist. Maybe you don't need to have the phone service. Maybe you don't need a full service marketing agency. How can you leverage AI agents and automation to clog these holes? And again, this is what we're seeing with a lot of different companies. This company called Klarna laid off a huge portion of their customer service staff. I don't recall the exact number offhand, so I'm not going to say it, but it was a very large portion. But what they found is that it didn't work. And so they are now going and hiring a bunch more. And again, this is, I believe, what we're going to see across basically every industry. Companies are going to be purging, and then adding back slowly. I mean, we're already seeing this. Big tech is laying off tens of thousands of people. They're going to find holes. They're going to fill those with AI and then with humans when the AI doesn't work. I just think that's what's going to happen. Here's a nice projection as well. Projections suggest that by 2027 or 2028, AI-driven tools will be the primary advice source for nearly 80% of retail investors. So there's more and more information that's showing that the price conscious, maybe less educated, maybe less affluent type of person is going to be using AI to make much more financial advice. I mean, I already use this for budgeting, saying like, this is how much money me and my family make. This is what we got. How would you allocate your budget? You know, are you tithing? Are you saving? All that. So, and I think that that's been really helpful in putting stuff together. And I'm a pretty financially literate guy, but you know, now you have this tool for everyone. Everyone can kind of understand how to allocate your funds. Okay. The other thing that I think is important here is thinking about fee compression and commoditization. So as more and more people, retail investors in this case, are using AI, it's going to lower their costs. I mean, the costs are about 0.25% or often free to use these tools, which is crazy. Now, compare that with a traditional advisor charging 1% of assets under management. It's a big deal. Wealthfront and Fidelity Go now automate portfolio management and financial planning with no minimums or no human contact. This is happening, guys. It's already happening. Wealthfront and Fidelity are a pretty big deal, and they're already doing this. It's only going to be more widespread and profound. And then what's the other implication for financial advisors and financial professionals? Loss of lower net worth clients. And I think this is the bigger thing. Like, you know, do you really want to be chasing off after the small, lower ticket clients anymore? I'll put it this way. You're not going to be able to give them enough hand-to-hand service because the expectation is going to be, I'm not going to pay you 1%, I'll pay you 0.25%. Okay. And so you're just not going to have the same amount of time. Now, you might have like a really smooth, really efficient operation that's AI powered. But that's something to think about. And this is the move here. This is where I think the best place to position yourself if you're in the financial advisory field would be. And again, you may disagree. You're welcome to put it in the comments below. I welcome it. Just leave a thoughtful comment. And by the way, when there's a lot of really, really intelligent people that watch these videos, and if you're one of them and you leave a thoughtful comment and you bring receipts, I will pin your comment because I'm here to learn just as much as you are. I'm here to share what I've learned. I'm here to reference. And again, if you leave a very, very thoughtful comment, I will pin you. I've done it in the past. I will continue to do it because I think that that's the best way to bring the best information to you. Thanks for subscribing, by the way. That means a lot. Okay, so what's the move for financial professionals? Well, you need to accept and adapt the rise of the hybrid advisory model. You need to integrate AI into your workflows, not just for data analysis, plan modeling, CRM. It needs to impact AI needs to be implemented in all sectors of what you're doing, from marketing and sales, customer service, research, copywriting, all of it. All of it. Find the stuff that works, find stuff that doesn't, phase it out, keep updating. It's so vital. And I think it could be kind of overwhelming at first. So just, my advice and what I'm doing is just figure out what's one thing I'm doing in my life right now that could be automated with AI. Let's focus on one thing a week. And by the end of the year, you have massive, massive momentum. So at any rate, these advisory models are just fantastic. They can serve very, very efficiently. So you can focus on the higher leverage stuff, the emotions, the personal connections, the estate planning, the more complex stuff, and use the AI to handle all that smaller ticket stuff. By the way, this works in every industry, but especially we're talking about finance today. Again, implement AI across your entire business. And then here's the other thing that I kind of talked about, but I'm going to give you another idea here. If you're specializing in one particular field and being in a very, very high trust niche, that could be a good place to be. Divorce planning, generational wealth, private equity. Now you're still leveraging AI, you're still public that you're leveraging AI to be more effective and to be more efficient, but you're saying that, hey, if you are thinking about getting a divorce, I am your guy. I know it in and out, especially within my state. I know it. We're using AI to be even better. And I think that's the move. If you're going to be a specialist, you still need to have general knowledge, but if you're going to be a specialist, especially if it's in a high trust niche, if you're, let me put it this way, if you're a specialist in I'm a specialist in helping people that make under $40,000 a year, that is the type, in my opinion, that is the type of work that is going to be outsourced to apps and softwares that can do it much more cost effectively. And then, obviously if you're in a high trust niche, you're going to leverage the fact that AI hallucinates, it gets things wrong. There was a Kiplinger study that reports AI gives wrong or misleading advice 35% of the time in retirement planning. That's not stuff that you can afford to get wrong. So I think that, and you're already seeing it, where about 65% of millennials and Gen Zers are already trusting AI to help them with their finances. There's going to be more and more trust, hallucinations in the AI models are going to get better and better. In any event, you definitely want to make sure that you're building trust and you're leveraging your experience to do that. Again, certification of fiduciary trust is value markers. Again, as more and more AI slop gets produced online, as more and more mistakes happen, you can be there to be the trusted person. And so that's, I think, where I would focus. Focus on the trust. Focus on privacy. Focus on maybe a very emotional, very personal type of line of finance. And then be vocal, be loud, build your personal brand online. I think that not enough people really consider how important that is, because the first thing I do when I'm going to work with someone is I go and I check them out online to see if they know what they're talking about, see what they've been doing, see how long they've been doing it. You need to be not like a secret. It shouldn't be a secret of what you're doing or how you're doing it. Be loud, share the journey. It's incredibly important. And I'm a pretty public guy, so maybe I'm biased there, but I think it's going to be important because that's what people do when they go to, like I was looking for a church recently. What do? I go to their website. What are your times? How big is your church? Where do you serve? Like these are really important. Like what kind of doctrine do you follow? These are important questions. And if I'm thinking about hiring you as a financial advisor or thinking about going through your SaaS product, I need to kind of know what's behind it. That's important. Listen, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you feel a little bit more financially literate and a little bit more AI literate as far as what's coming next. There's a lot of theories out there, guys, about where AI is going and how it's going to either end the world or what the new future is going to look like. I recorded a video right here on the top potential outcomes, and people are going nuts. People are going nuts over these potential outcomes. We don't know exactly where it's going to go, which is why I said let's cover the most likely. Is it going to be AI terminators? Is it going to be a renaissance of content creation? Is it going to be authoritarian AI monitoring? We're going to cover all the potential outcomes in this video, so check that out. And thanks for watching today, boys and girls. I'll see you. Bye.